Okay, for this video we're looking at the derivatives of the 6 basic trigonometric functions. So I'm going to start looking at them graphically. So I have the graph of y equals sine x. If I wanted to know what the derivative of that looked like, I could very simply look at the slope of sine x. So some things to note. Since it's cyclical, I know that I'm going to be getting, since I get a zero slope, I'm going to get repeated values of 0 for the slope. So if I were to draw the derivative, I would have it intersecting the x-axis over and over again. Now if you look between these two places where the slope is 0, the graph is going up. It starts close, the graph is going up, so my derivative will be positive, but the slope starts close to 0 and ends close to 0. Between these two, the graph is going down, so I have a negative slope, but we're close to 0 slope, close to 0 slope. So close to 0, further away from 0, close to 0. And the pattern is just going to repeat. And if you take a look at this, this should look fairly familiar. We'll look up here. So the derivative of sine x turns out to just be cosine of x. Now if I draw the slope of cosine x, I do not get sine x. So here's a 0 and here's a 0, which that's similar. And I have a 0 here and a 0 here, 0 slope. But if I look between these two, the graph is going down, which means my graph will be negative. So it's going to go down and come back up. It'll be positive between these two, go up, come back down, and then the pattern will repeat. So if I look at the sine, it's similar, but it's not exactly the same. In fact, it's flipped over the x-axis. So that means all our y values have changed sign. So it turns out the derivative of cosine x is the opposite of sine x. So it is negative sine x. Now, I'm not going to show you graphically all of these, but there is a pattern. I'm going to tell you the derivative of tangent x is secant squared x. Now take a look at the comparison between sine and cosine. This starts with a c, and it got a negative derivative. It's a cofunction. It has an opposite and sine derivative. Now sine and cosine go together. If I look at this one, tangent is secant squared x. This is a cofunction of tangent, cotangent. It starts with a c. It will have a negative derivative. And it will be related to this one. Now tangent gave you secant squared x. Cotangent is going to give you cosecant squared x. So if you look at this one, the derivative of secant x is secant x tangent x. This is the cofunction of secant, cosecant x. Starts with a c, the cofunction. It gets a negative derivative. Since secant went to secant x tangent x, cosecant will go to cosecant x, cotangent x. So it's really less memorization than you might think. As long as you remember if it starts with a c, it will have a negative derivative, and they are related. If you know tangent, you know cotangent. If you know secant, you know cosecant. If you know sine, you should know cosine.